Hello, friends, and welcome to my podcast. Today's podcast is Why Byjus is Not the Culprit. Well, to start with, our society from time immemorial has treated education as elitist. Not all students made it to the Gurukul. And one needs to understand that even if there was a former Gurukul system of educating the students, besides that, there was also a system where there was home education which was very prevalent in India, which was also known as homeschooling, where teachers came to the residents and taught the child the reading, writing, and basic mathematical skills to the child so that he could have a reasonable education. Well, it's a rude fact that most of us would not like to accept is that certain castes only enjoyed the luxury of education. Not everybody in India actually enjoyed the luxury of having a education. And the reason that education was denied, because it was then also that people realized that education leads to critical thinking, it leads to innovation, it leads to also challenging the status quo, which would be detrimental to the interest of the educated class. And therefore educated class saw to it that education only is restricted to a certain class, and the educated class did enjoy the fruits of education. Now, let's not complain that we had the caste system and education was restricted in India. Well, in other societies, in Western societies, there was a class system. So a certain class only had the privilege of getting educated, and the other class really couldn't get educated itself. And there was a huge divide in the educational status of various classes is in the Western society. So, but West realized that yes, education liberates the individual and it improves his economic status. Because of the Industrial Revolution, one understood that one needs an educated class also to run the society, to run the industries, and therefore education could bring economic well-being, could improve the economic status of the people who are educated because they would be finally employable in the industries. But here we need to understand that in today's modern society, education has also been commodified. Now we are coming to the main topic that education has been commodified, and commodification of education was much before Byju's was in the market. Well, many of them would be surprised, but let's give examples. Brilliant tutorial, Agarwal classes, they made killing training the best students and created them into board toppers. Now, in the 80s, 90s, and well through in 70s, well early in 70s also, these classes were very popular, where they used to take students, they used to give them coaching. It was a physical coaching, and it used to make toppers out of them, and these students finally made it to the elite government institutes of engineering like IITs, ICTs, medical institutes, and they had a good life because they were professionals. So much before Byju's was in market, there was coaching classes. The best ranks, the best ranks, the best coaching classes produced the best ranking IIT students. And it is true today also. Till today, classes play a very important role, and they play a overarching role in creating toppers. But then why blame only classes? To, even private schools have become elitist institutes where people pay a hefty fee to give their child a classroom filled with students of the same economic and social status. The teachers, most often than not, in these private institutes are ill paid, and they are subservient to the interest of the students and the parents' whims. The students and the parents are very whimsical when they put their children in these private institutes, and unfortunately, the teachers, the management, the principals have to submit to the whims of the parents, because it is the parents who are ultimately paying for the entire running of the school, and therefore they have to be subservient to their customers. Well, the same students who are in these private schools, to do well in life, they join coaching institutes. They pay astronomical sums to join those coaching institutes. And parents also pay up for these coaching institutes under social pressure, because let's understand that India is a country where success and status can be bought, and it can be bought by joining the right institute, the right coaching classes, where a lot of individual attention is given to you, and where you are groomed to give the exam in the highly competitive environment. And so we need to understand here that competition here, the competitive exams here, the results of the competitive exams here is skewed towards students who can afford these expensive coachings. And of course, there are a group of students, a minority group of students who are from very well off families, who would not like to face this competition in India. So they go give international exams, go to the West, have a good education. So, what I want to say is that classes and elite schools were much in vogue before Byjus came to the market. Now, what Byjus exactly has done? Byjus is a product of internet society. He exploited the online delivery system. You see, much before online or before internet, nobody knew Byjus. Byjus is a classic example of delivering education over the internet platform. What did he do? He hired people to create the best audio, video content which could be delivered online. And how is he different from other coaching institutes? Well, other coaching institutes give physical coaching. He delivers his content online. The delivery mechanism of Byju's, and as you compare it with other coaching classes, is different, but the goal is similar. You need to understand here the goal is similar. And now let's get back to schools. ICSE schools too play on the insecurity of parents, explaining them that their students need to get a much holistic education to be better equipped as corporate leaders. They show that ICSE board and many other such elite boards, they show that their education develops every facet of child's personality. But then, does this not come at a steep cost? Are not all schools in India supposed to be institutes where they develop the inherent ability and the traits of the child? Yes, but do governments spend on such schools? Do government run schools deliver such kind of education? Or do, for that matter, even private schools cater to this? We need to ask a question: why is education highly privatized? No Indian has ever dared to ask the government why education is not government subsidized. We have farm subsidy, we have electricity subsidy, we have subsidy for healthcare, but sadly, when it comes to education, there are no subsidies. We really know the fact that subsidies, even if they are there, are very little. One thing that we need to understand here is that Indian government has been consistently one of the worst spenders on education. To feel proud, we may be ranking above Pakistan when it comes to spending of a percentage of our gross domestic product on education. But mind you, we are well below countries like Uzbekistan, Ghana, Honduras, Kenya, Vietnam, Indonesia, Bhutan, Mongolia, El Salvador. Now, these economies are not economies which are very great than our economy, but then they do spend a lot on education. And if you can see that out of the names that I have counted, there are even some African countries that spend a lot on education, and they spend much more than us. Their spending is double than our spending. Therefore, there is a lack of public spending, and this has led to a huge market for privatization in education. Now, privatization of essential services leads to exploitation and inequity in market. Why? Because goods are available to those who can afford it, not to those who need or those who deserve it. You see, education is not something which needs to be supplied to people who can pay for it. It is a basic right. It has been accepted that it's a basic right of every human being to get education. And I may also put that quality education. Now it's the time for quality education, education that enables you to economically and socially prosper. In such a market, Byju's is in a privatized education market. Byju's is, of course, playing a very dominant role today. Therefore, it's criticized by its detractors, and there is no other reason. That is because he has grown very big, and then his detractors couldn't foresee that, you know, internet delivery model, the online delivery model could have been leveraged, and you could have made more money out of it, and you could have reached much more students with a reasonable investment. I again would like to say that our government is a perfect laggard when it comes to quality spending on quality schools, quality colleges. And it will be no surprise that if you find that most of the education ministers of the states, education is a state subject, that most of the education ministers are owners of multi-million rupee educational complexes. And I am making this statement with a huge conviction. And with this, with our education ministers owning multi-million rupee educational complexes, privatized education, them being, the owners of privatized education, privatized schooling, privatized college, what would be their commitments towards quality education? Should I say more about it? I don't think I need to say more about it. And one of the very rather laughable situations in India is that to be an educator, that is to be a teacher in India, you need superb or in many cases superlative qualifications. To be a teacher, you need to be a minimum a graduate, a postgraduate, you need to have teachers training, you need to have MEd. In many cases, you have to have a PhD. International schools ask for a PhD sometimes. The teacher needs to be a PhD. But then, what does it take to be an educationist in India? That is, quote unquote, owner of a school or a private college in India. You need not be educated at all. And there are examples of this. And now this creates a situation where people who have never been to formal schooling, never have even faced the rigors of the competition of education, suddenly become owners of educational complexes, and they start directing, they start what you say as dictating terms of how the teacher should work, how much the teacher should be paid. So, out of all this, the state of our education in India today is so bad that should I point the qualification of our formal central minister of education? You remember, you see, there was some formal education minister whose qualifications were very dubious. She was the HRD minister, and it was a real tough situation. There was a lot of bad press. There was a lot of things that she did, and we did not go well with the directors of IIT, and a lot of such things happened. So you need to understand one thing here, that out of all this situation, Byju's is not a culprit in the privatized education market. It is only an institute which is making business out of a pressing need in our society, and that is quality education. It's only tapping into that market. Does Byju's do charity? Well, it doesn't do charity, I know, but do private schools do charity? Does Byju overhype its product? most of them complain that it overhypes its products. White Hat Junior and all, they are exploiting, they are overhyping. But let's be practical here, and let's ask a question to ourselves. Do private institutes not overhype themselves? Do schools not charge computer fee and computer education at a level where a child will only go and punch a few keys in the computer and probably watch a game, or probably play tic tac toe on it, or probably watch a cartoon on it? Why blame White Hat Junior? Even private schools are doing the same thing. They charge computer fees for kids. Here, at the end, I would like to point out that I'm a product of a government school. I'm a product of a government college. I have been to IIT and I have worked with Department of Atomic Energy. And what pains me that the schools where I have studied, they have been now reduced to, you know, pathetic hospitals where teachers are nurses, students are treated as patients, and the education minister is, and the education department and the education minister, they act like a drug company who keep, inventing all kinds of cures for the ill that is education in India. That is because education is now considered as a disease. It's not considered as something of, where intellectual things need to be put in, where intellectual thought needs to be put in on what direction we need to go, but rather it's treated as a disease where, which needs to be cured by various kinds of pills, potions. You have doctors for it. And if you really go to see in the entire discussion which goes on around in education, you hardly find that any teacher has any voice or any spoken about the educational policies of India. They are just, the implementers of educational policy. They are never even consulted while an education policy is being maintained, or is being made. The bureaucrats do it. I have seen many videos where the bureaucrat comes in, he barges into the school and starts shouting on the teacher. Now, what is the respect you give to a teacher? Tell me. What is the respect? A school inspector, a mere school inspector, can come and start complaining about the education that the teacher is giving. Why do we have the inspector Raj in education? Why are teachers not treated as professionals? Why are principals not treated as professionals? Why is it that there is a scam while teachers are selected? Teachers are kept on ad hoc basis. They are never paid. They are never made permanent. They are for years together kept as Shikshan Sevaks. In Maharashtra, we have a system of Shikshan Sevak where you get paid lesser than a peon, but you are supposed to contribute to the intellectual growth of the child. Now, isn't that very rude and demeaning? Well, with all this situation that the government has ended up creating, why are we even blaming Byjus as a culprit for exploiting it? The government has exploited it. The government has created a situation. The government functionaries have exploited the situation. The private coaching classes have exploited the function. Now, why are you blaming Byjus for it? He only found a better delivery system. And that's his genius. I would call that is his genius of finding a better delivery system. We should actually take lessons from such company and improve our delivery system. We should actually learn from him. Don't Please don't end up bashing him. No bashing, no personality bashing, no cult bashing, no. You need to learn lessons from people who are successful. Sometimes what happens is when people are economically successful, we see everything bad about him. We treat him as a robber baron. Well, that's not right. Now, you would believe that many of you would at the end of this believe that I have been sponsored by Byju's. No, I have not been sponsored by Byju's. Let me again repeat one thing, that I have studied in a government school. I have studied my 12th in a government school. I have studied at IIT, which was government sponsored. You see, uh, education today is a multi-million dollar business. Be it even if you want to go to the best of the institutes in this country, you need to spend a lot on coaching. Even if you want to enter IIT, which is government funded, you need to spend a lot of coaching. Somewhere in the 1999, IIT had taken a decision to hike their fees by fourfold. Now, what is the reason for it? They reason that each and every student clearing JEE and coming to IIT is spending astronomical money on coaching and then coming to IIT Bombay. Well, when he can afford to pay for the coaching, then why can't he afford to pay fees which is at cost, education which is at cost? Why should government be subsidizing their education? Well, the question there was that government was not subsidizing the education in schools. Now, why should the government be subsidizing higher education? Well, that makes a point. But then you need to understand one thing, that education subsidy is a must. Most of the countries which have successfully educated their students have gone for a subsidy model, have gone for more spending on education, have gone for government building more quality institutes where people could study. But unfortunately, none of this happened in India. We went with the wild plan of privatization where we believe that private entrepreneurs would just improve the situation. Well, they didn't. Like private healthcare today, which is a mess in India, all of us know which is a mess in India because they exploit the very basic human need of healthcare. Education too, privatized education too, is a big mess. You have few sparks in this entire darkness, and those few sparks are taken, and those few, firefly like sparks are taken, and they are shown, okay, see, here is a success story. But then why don't you see at the end of the day how many unemployable engineers does private education create? How many unemployable graduates does it create? How many students who pass their 10th, forget about higher education, even in private schools, how many students who have passed their 10th and 12th can even face a basic competition? The answer is no, they have to go to coaching institutes to face the competition. So therefore, selecting one institution as a culprit amongst this entire mess is not right. We need to understand the success of Byju's, learn from it, and the government should actually be implementing many of the ideas that he has implemented and made a sound business out of it. He made a sound business out of it and he delivered. You see, if he wouldn't have delivered, people wouldn't have purchased his product. He has delivered. You have to accept it. He has delivered. For example, now, show me one person in India who has created a channel like Khan Academy. No one. Could the government even replicate it, or could the government even do it for the school education? The answer is no. We couldn't create it. Neither we could sponsor individuals, neither could we support individuals who could do this, or we could identify a plan to do this. One needs to understand here that education is very competitive. People do take education for aspirational purposes. People take education to be in the elite group, where being in the elite group, passing to, getting admission in these elite institutes automatically translates to a better lifestyle, a higher salary, a higher social status. It is competitive. And it is going to be so for the years to come ahead, because the opportunities in India, the job opportunities in India vis-a-vis the population that we have is highly skewed. You have very little opportunities, but a high population which has a great aspiration. So competition is but natural here. And when left to private entrepreneurs, such exploitation is bound to occur. Be it Byju's, if not Byju's tomorrow, it will be somebody else. So, Byju's is not the culprit. The culprit is the government itself. You see, government ended up creating monsters like this, where they build the right ecosystem to create monsters like this. With that, I end my podcast. Hope it was interesting to you, and hope also that you have got a fresh angle to the Byju's controversy. Do write in comments, and please be civil while writing your comments, and try and understand. I have not been sponsored, I have not been asked by Byju's to give a talk in their favor. Okay? So, goodbye. Take care. These are COVID times. Take care and keep listening to my podcast. And do subscribe my channel. This motivates me. Bye.